Before we begin, I would like to introduce the entire commission. I'll start from myself and then we'll go down to the left. My name is Harry Spikes. I'm the chairman.
Eric Holcomb, Executive Director.
Tamara Woods, DHCD Rep.
Nicole Battle, Commissioner.
Sarah Langmead, Commissioner.
Kapal Lynn, Commissioner.
Gary Rodwell, Commissioner representing the Coppin Heights Community Development Corporation and Baltimore Heritage.
Myra Mendeleev, Commissioner.
Peter Morrill, Commissioner.
Ann Powell, Commissioner representing Greater Baltimore Committee.
Garrett Power, Commissioner.
Catherine Good, Commissioner.
John Bullock, Commissioner representing Baltimore City Council.
Staff.
Stacy Montgomery, CHAP staff.
Eddie Leon, CHAP staff.
Thank you. Thank you, Stuart. The CHAP mission is to enhance and promote the culture and economy of Baltimore through the preservation of buildings, structures, sites, and neighborhoods that have aesthetic, historic, and architectural value. The goals of CHAP include preserving historic architecture and monuments, reclaiming broken neighborhoods, preventing demolition by neglect, and integrating our city's past into its future. For those of you who are with us today, outside we have sign-in sheets, and the sign-in sheets, of course, look like this. These sign-in sheets allow us to see if there's anyone who would like to give public statement or public testimony. If you have not signed the sheets, please feel free to go out and sign the sheets if you do want to speak. Also, there is an agenda outside that you all can see that shows you the items that we will be discussing today. Usually we give people 1 to 3 minutes to speak. So if I do this, that means it's 2 minutes and 30 seconds you have used. That means you've got 30 seconds left. Very few times do we have to tell someone to stop speaking, but I want to give that in the beginning. When you do come up, please give your full name for the record, because there are times when I sometimes mispronounce your name. And if I do not want to do that. Please feel free to give us your entire name and state for 3 minutes what you'd like to speak about. Thank you. I would like to make a motion to waive the reading of the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I would like to make a motion to adapt the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Minor work applications produced by staff in the last month we'll review. And of course, right now we'll go through the due process and review procedures. CHAP reviews applications in conjunction with the building permit process of the permit section of the Department of Housing and Community Development. If a building permit is filed prior to historic design review, the application is placed on hold pending completion of the CHAP review process. The review process is completed by issuing an authorization to proceed. The historic design review process is in addition to other applicable laws and regulations and does not diminish the force of urban renewal plans, building codes, zoning codes, etc. It is the applicant's responsibility to comply with all applicable laws, regulations, and codes. Proposed projects are reviewed prior to issuing a building permit. Applicants must comply with Baltimore City Historic Preservation Design Guidelines in planning and executing historic and architectural character of the structure and of the immediate area. Applicants will need to clearly explain how their project complies with the design guidelines. Minor projects. In order to expedite the application process, Commission has designed delegated review authority to the Executive Director for cases involving minor work. Minor projects must not significantly change the overall appearance or remove the significant undamaged historic fabric. All minor work must clearly meet the design guidelines. Major projects. Major projects may change the overall character, appearance, and integrity of the structure. Substantial building alterations, demolitions, additions, and new construction are considered major projects and are reviewed at a public hearing. Interested parties should request a pre-development meeting in the planning department to begin the review process. An electronic of all materials must be submitted to the CHAP staff at least 25 calendar days prior to the public hearing date. If the application is complete, the project shall be scheduled for a public hearing. CHAP hearings. At the public hearing, CHAP staff presents recommendations to the commission regarding the project. Following the staff presentation, the applicant may have a presentation to the commission. Interested parties, including neighborhood associations, have the opportunity to provide public testimony. Following testimony, the commission renders a decision on the application at the public hearing. Persons aggrieved by the decision of the commission may seek judicial and appellate review in accordance with the Baltimore City Code. After an authorization to proceed is issued, the applicant may obtain a building permit. The commission's process is impartial, and staff comments are evidence that assist the commissions in rendering the decisions. I would like to ask for a motion to approve the final agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Let us begin. Commissioners, in front of us, we have the consent agenda, the two items you do see in front of you, and of course, you see them on the screen. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. We are now going to go to our item on the agenda. We have, thank you, Eddie. Appreciate it. 500 South Bond Street, Fells Point Historic District. The request is a final review, construct one-story rooftop addition. The applicant is Chasen Development. Justin Seto is the architect, and our staff who will be presenting for us right now is Mr. Eddie Leon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen. We have for you today the continuation of the review to construct a one-story addition at the 500 South Bond Street in Fells Point. Justin Seto, architect, applicant Chasen Development. The site, as noted before, is here located in the western edge of the Fells Point Historic District. This area has been previously reviewed for the adjacent property at 1517 Eastern Avenue. The structure is this one with the Chasen Company's name on the side of the building. It is a contemporary warehouse building that is located at the intersection of Eastern and South Bond Street, and also includes two row houses on the south side that had lost their original historic facades at some point before the creation of the historic district in 2007. The plans are to construct a one-story addition on top of this existing building, and convert the interior top floor area of the warehouse into residential units. The site map here shows the exact footprint of the property, and we see a view also here looking north towards Eastern Avenue at the top. So the property was reviewed for signage by CHAP staff. Has been approved for height, massing, and scale of the proposed addition on November 13th, 2022, and is returning for review of final details. Applicant proposes to construct a one-story residential addition on a two-story non-contributing warehouse building. The proposed addition will be comprised of a band of multi-light aluminum-clad windows on both the north and east elevations. The new floor will not be set back on both the Eastern Avenue and South Bond Street elevations. The building will have a flat roof. There will be an elevator and staff towers that rise an additional story, but they're located at the southern portion of the building and set back from South Bond Street elevation, so these will not be visible. CHAP applied the following guidelines: 2.4.1 building entrances, 2.4.5 roofs, 2.5 materials and details, 2.51 doors and windows, 2.5.2 materials. We see here the intersection looking south on Bond Street to the left, Eastern Avenue elevation, and we're looking at the under construction a rendering of 1517 Eastern Avenue. This is also being done by Chasen. And the next door building to the left is the current warehouse building, which will have new windows incorporated on that upper level. And on the top level of the roof will be constructed a new one-story addition. Under 2.41, building entrances, new residential entrance will be located close to the adjacent residential properties along South Bond Street. Under 2.4.5 roofs, the building will have a simple flat roof, be covered in rubber membrane system. All the rooftop features will be set back and not visible from the public right-of-way. The addition will have a simple, well-proportioned cornice edge with minimal detailing. The current design is showing a broken-up cornice design at the moment. There will be a small rear deck on the southwest corner roof. This is a view of the proposal on South Bond Street. The current warehouse building, as you see, has the two main garage entries and office entry to the right-hand side. The new residential entry will be located on the southern end, closest to the residential units along South Bond Street. There is, as you see, a step down on the cornice, on the upper level of the existing buildings, facades, and the new addition will be slightly set back behind that edge, front edge. Under 2.5.1 doors and windows, the new addition will have windows that line up with a band of windows on the upper level of the existing warehouse. This upper level will be converted into residential units. The new windows will be aluminum-clad casements to fit the original window band dimensions on the existing building and will be full glass on the addition above. The windows will be recessed to allow shadow reveals on both levels and both elevations. The details on the windows were uploaded to the Wix site a couple days ago. They are on their package. And there will be traditional window openings on the rear southwest elevation facing the roof deck level. Under 2.5.2 materials, the new addition level will use smooth finish cementitious sheathing material and new aluminum clad windows and metal siding on the there will be new clad windows on the existing base building on the floor, on the new floor. These are the different elevations of, and this, pardon me, let me go back one. This is the appearance of the elevations from Eastern Avenue and a close-up of the garage entry, side warehouse entry, and the new openings of the windows above the Chasen signage, as well as how the new addition lines up with the fourth floor level, cornice level of the soon-to-be completed or under construction 1517 Eastern Avenue. This elevation drawing shows the existing warehouse building, the two main garage entrances and other entrances to the warehouse, plus the residential on the far left, which will have a transom and a metal canopy to signify that is the residential entry point for the property. And we see the new addition lined up top. The vertical the vertical elements of the separated windows will continue down onto the window level of the existing warehouse building. The addition will help strengthen the corner of South Bond Street and Eastern Avenue. The staff believes the addition meets the CHAP guidelines for building entrances, roofs, windows, and doors and materials. The applicant's design is compatible with the existing warehouse building that will be internally adapted to contain residential housing units. The entrance has been purposely located near the residences along South Bond Street to provide a transition from the warehouse entrances. The addition will also provide a transition to the new residential building currently under construction at 1517 Eastern Avenue. The Fells Point Design Review Committee did meet and provided some additional comments. Committee noted substantial improvements to the overall submission and approves the schematic design of the above, with the above comments that were addressed. These are loaded into the Wix site for further review. The FDRC requests review of the final details and specifications of the design, including materials, color samples, lightings, and signage. The staff, this is a view of the rear southwest corner of the property as it's been built up above the row house additions that were incorporated into the existing larger warehouse at the corner. There'll be a small roof deck, and there'll be some deck entrances and balconies located here. Staff recommendation is for approval of the addition with final details to return to staff. Thank you.
Eddie, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Eddie?
Yes.
Yes.
Just questions, right, not deliberation.
Yeah, that's right.
I have questions, but maybe, I don't know if you're gonna maybe steer them to the architect, but one question, the use of the first floor warehouse is gonna stay, that's not changing, is that correct?
Correct.
And the other question I had, what was the other question I had? On the rendering, it showed, it looked like it showed, I mean, it might just be the rendering, but it shows like a site improvement or in the right of way, and I'm just curious if that, like if you look at the photo actually right now, you see the photo in the corner, the ADA accessible ramp kind of runs into the corner of the building, but it shows there's improvements on the site corner. Is there any intention to do any site improvements in the right of way on that corner?
That you'll have to ask the development team. I do believe they plan to try to improve it, but we haven't talked specifically about that in this phase.
Those are all my questions for now, and I'll wait for deliberation.
Any other commissioners? Any questions for Eddie? Okay.
Nate Prettle's here from the development team.
Okay, Eddie, thank you. By all means, come on.
Commissioners, Mr. Chair, Nate Prettle, the Director of Government Relations for Chasing Companies, and give a little bit of additional summary. I want to thank Mr. Leon for his staff report, but I first address Commissioner Leon's question. Yes, there will be site improvements once we get past the initial pre-development approval stage. We'll work with the Department of Transportation and DPW, and frankly, our civil engineer has already begun sort of laying out what those improvements will be. And one of them you already mentioned, ADA access on the intersection and the typical sort of best practices for street level redevelopment. Guess while I'm up here, just a couple other notes. Want to mention the community outreach process that went along with this. Not only did we meet with the Design Review Committee, but the Fells Point Residents Association twice to review this design, as well as the Douglas District Association. There are immediate neighbors within the larger Fells Point neighborhood, Dallas Street, parts of Eastern Avenue and Bond Street. And as far as I know, there are no objections. The last meeting was last Thursday. I do want to hand out some renderings. Eddie, I don't know if this is the appropriate time or not. There are 4 copies here. One went to Ms. Tempura. So I think the Design Review Committee process here is really a great example of how their input, along with CHAP staff, can result in a better design for a building. And I'm really pleased how that worked out. We had maybe a half dozen comments from the Fells Point Design Review Committee. I think we agreed with all of them and have made those changes which are represented on the renderings being handed out now. We're not asking CHAP to vote on this today. It was not submitted 25 days prior to the hearing, so to stick with what Eddie showed in his staff presentation. But ultimately, we would come back with more formal plans for this to the Design Review Committee, to CHAP staff, and absent any objections, we're likely to comply with and incorporate the Design Review Committee's comments, some of which you'll see just speak to the rendering that's up there, continuing that black painted band to the southern end of the building, adding a transom above that residential entrance to sort of match the height and scale of the existing roll-up doors. You'll notice on the southern end of the third story where the brick dips down. I'll wrap it up there with my 30 seconds and just leave any questions.
Go right ahead, Myra.
If we can go to the slide that shows the, toward the back, the interior courtyard, is that meant to be accessible? Because in the image, it looks like the wall kind of wraps around part of it, but it looks like there's like an area where there's no fall protection.
So yeah, this image is really looking through another building. Otherwise, this is only going to be visible by the new residents of our adjacent buildings under construction at 1517 Eastern Avenue, others in the courtyard, and one property on Dallas Street is a large 4-story condo building at 507 Dallas. We've been meeting with those neighbors individually. As long as Ms. Tempura, I'd like to thank Deb for her involvement in this process. I think it's been really productive. And the last thing I'll say, we pledge to work with both Ms. Tempura as well as the owners of the 507 Dallas on some of the structural issues once we get closer to construction. That's really our next step.
Are there any other commissioners have any questions for Nate? Catherine.
Microphone. One of the comments from the ARC was about reusing some of the salvaged brick. Is there an intention to do that, or trying to, new brick best match possible, or was there any thought there?
Yes, we do plan on using brick. So you'll see there's a few places where what we call the ribbon windows on the second floor, we're gonna have to make additional openings. And so all of the brick that's gonna be removed, both for that part of the new residential entrance, it's our opinion that there will be more than enough to fill in, that gap that I was just mentioning before my time was up with the brick from the same building. And we spent quite a bit of time talking about that at the Design Review Committee, and I think it would look much better if we could use that brick.
Right, yes, exactly.
That's our
and
plan.
It was kind of a little note in there, but I figured you guys had talked more about that. Thank you.
Are there any other commissioners who'd like to ask a question? Nate, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have one more person on our list for 500 South Bond. Ms. Deb?
Deborah Tempera, owner of 514 South Bond Street adjacent. We did have one meeting, and I had a lot of questions, and Nate took them down and he submitted them to Eddie. At this point, though, majority of the structural issues, there's been no verification. Mr. Leon just stated, and I didn't know where he got the facts from, because I'm not sure, the 512 and 510 building, whether the original front is still there. And my question being is the fact that I know at 514, I believe that facade was put on top of the original, and it may have to do with the time the so-called mysterious demolition happened to those properties way back when. And my point being, if this was a sister house, they may still be tied in. And I just think it's very important to have a structural engineer verify this to relieve my mind and also to relieve anyone else who is concerned about removal of those interior structures. So there's a little question mark there. And I do appreciate the comment that you did understand my concern about the demolition of the interior structure and how important it is. At this point, it doesn't matter illegal or not. It's there, it's maybe connected. We don't have any of that structure. So I don't know if it's still behind there or not and connected to mine. The other question is the side entrance. I think that's great, but there's a little bit I couldn't never get the answers of the distance away from my doorway. My doorway and stairway is basically almost on the property line. So the placement of that existing door that they do have now is like being right there. So, I did ask about the elevator, and there was no response in that because it was always, well, we need to move further on with these questions. It doesn't really concern this CHAP meeting. But elevator location, and I'm concerned because they do not want to lose a lot of space on that first floor. So that little detail there, like how close is that awning? That middle drawing you're looking at looks a little different than the drawing I have here. It looks closer. We just need some verification of the distance. How far is my doorway away from the property line there? Because that elevator shaft, that doorway gets closer to mine, that elevator shaft is going to be coming right up, and then there's noise, and there's a lot of other things to be concerned. So that is two of my concerns on the project and the design, because the detail just isn't there enough. Otherwise, and it doesn't say in the drawing too about the elevator shaft. And I did ask Eddie that last week, and his response was, we don't know that yet. So is it going to be on the property line and things like that, and the snow drift in my roof, and et cetera, et cetera. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Tempera. Commissioners, do you all have any questions for Ms. Tempera?
I do. I understand concern about noise entry and things like that with having an entrance right there. Do you have a feeling for what you're comfortable with? Is there like, because I know they moved it some. So is there any indication from yourself about, even having it there is an issue, or you're just not sure kind of what that distance is, and so?
Well, enough to be able to produce firewalls, to reduce a soundproofing wall and really appropriate firewalls. I mean, is there room for all that? And does it need to be moved over a little bit more? That's basically.
Okay.
Is that
all right.
answering your question?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Are there any other commissioners like to give a question? Okay. Stacy, could you send us back to our recommendation page? Thank you. I want to take the time now to give the commissioners an opportunity to discuss what we have on the table for 500 South Bond Street.
I just got a few things.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I just, probably more just recommendations, really, mostly. If you go back, Eddie, I don't know if you're, go back to the elevation, if you don't mind. Yeah, that one's fine. I think in the latest rendering, maybe the public's not seeing it, but we saw it, I guess, that the rendering is showing that there's an effort to try to streamline that notch because of the roof line. So I think that's well done, and I think that was one of my comments, is that if you're going to manipulate the facade anyways, to either match that and try to eliminate that so there's not a jog, and I think that's being done, and it sounds like that's the plan. I would also consider, I think it looks like that you're continuing to cut the rest of that off in order to continue that, or vice versa. It could be that you're filling that in. I would think that if you go back to the rendering, maybe on the eastern side, with there you go. Like if you look at how when you cut that down and it sort of jogs at the cornice of the new construction, I don't think it's something that would make or break it, but it would be sort of probably, if you're kind of showing this in conjunction and saying, hey, I want to make sure that this is working together, that why not have the cornice match up across and really turn the corner, and so there's a way to adjust the detail that makes your glass fenestration go up higher, right? But then at least that cornice line would match to the cornering of the building, if that makes sense. So again, it's just a small recommendation. The other thing I want to be mindful about, it looks like the second floor of your units are part of that new sort of a strip window system across the second floor. Is that right? So I'm only concerned about the scale. If I look at an elevation, I just don't know. I'm assuming that you'll have to deal with this with your permit drawings and so forth, but it doesn't look like it's per code for an egress for an emergency window. So I just be mindful of that. If you go, Eddie, if you go out to the elevation, just the proportion of each of those windows are, if I'm understanding correctly, that second floor is part of that strip window system is part of the second floor units, right? Of the new units, and I just don't, those windows seem very narrow across the board. If they're operable, or which one is operable? Again, it's neither here nor there for us. It's more just I just noticed that, and I didn't know if that was an issue when it comes to for egress. The last question I had, or last comment I have, maybe it addresses the neighboring properties concern a little bit. I kind of wish, the only thing I'm missing with this project is that, I wish the corner of the building, if you go to rendering, was, if you're going to do some manipulation, and I know the warehouse use is not changing, and you're not incorporating commercial retail but it just seems like that corner is a missed opportunity. We have a corner that's really solid, and you kind of wish that maybe even that lobby should have been there, kind of thing, where that corner can be engaged. It could be, you could open that corner up and have more fenestration, more activity. The main lobby could be there instead of it being right next to the neighboring residential property. But the ship has probably sailed. But my recommendation, I wish, is the owner and architect would consider that corner more, because you're going that far anyways, to enliven that. And that, I think that goes with the site improvements. You're going to have a new ADA ramp that's going to correspond to the crosswalk, and probably new sidewalk all the way around. But we still have that really solid corner, and I just wish that would be something to be addressed. I think these are more urban, probably, sort of design motions as opposed to architectural design motion or historical design. But I just wish that solid wall in the corner was just something addressed. So, but that's my comments.
Okay, Bob, thank you. Is there anyone else? Go right ahead, Ann.
Well, that's what I don't understand. The ground floor plan do not correlate to the renderings at all. Is there a plan that I'm not getting? Like page 12 of the PDF?
Everything we were given is in that packet that's on the Wix site.
So to your point, Kapow, it was at that corner in this plan. So
The lobby?
yeah.
No, it's
The lobby's on the
Turn it.
Eastern is the top of this, and Bond is the right of
Thank
the
you.
plan.
Oh, because there's no north arrow on
Right.
here.
Yeah,
That's why.
go north.
Thank you. So glad I can read a plan.
Anyone else would like to share? Go ahead, Catherine.
So I too agree that the updated rendering in response to the ARC comments has improvements over what is shown. And so I have a couple comments, but kind of as a procedural question, since these weren't submitted previously, are any review comments that we propose, do they need to reflect based off of the rendering that's shown on screen in that application? Or can we base them on the updated rendering provided by the applicant?
I think we just have to be very, very clear in the motion, especially for the motion taker who writes them down. I mean, it sounds,
Meaning
and
you,
it
that's
depends
why
on
I'm
what.
asking.
If the motion is disapprove the plans, we're talking about the plans that were given to you last week, not these in our hand. But if you're giving recommendations to the applicant, then refer to these if your recommendation is referring to these.
Okay. All right. So that said, I do appreciate the efforts to respond in this updated rendering. I definitely agree that taking away that kind of little notch space, while I understand, originally it was to try to kind of keep the idea of those row house, those row houses have lost so much of their integrity, whether it's existing behind the existing facade or not, but, as it appears on the street right now. So I do think that reads much better as an overall building. I do disagree with Commissioner Capel, though, on the side. I like that the cornice is in a different spot on the other building from here because it gives it more of a it's a separate building. And to me, it's far enough off that it reads clearly separately, as opposed to what we sometimes see of awkwardly close but not quite. So to me, it really helps to define that this is indeed a separate building. And I also appreciate having the residential entrance kind of made more seen, influential. And I know that in, the permitting process and details, the designer will make sure that there's enough room to provide adequate structure and fire ratings and all those things between the entrance door. So the only, I guess, question that I was trying to still figure out, and this goes back to Anne and trying to read the plans. So if I understand this correctly, from the renderings, assuming that the elevator shaft and stair tower are rendered in here because they will have a pop-up at some point, and I'm trying to figure out where that falls in the building structure. So it looks to me like they're partway back along the shared wall with the residence next door. Am I reading that correctly? Okay. So then, can we go to the rendering that was the interior courtyard?
It's on page 16.
So theoretically, then, those are basically center kind of cut off where the hearing 2 is. They'd be kind of up in that location.
It's shown in the elevation.
Is it?
Look, page 16.
I missed it. Oh, okay.
It's a sightline study.
Thank you. I did not see that one. Okay. So it looks like the stair is what's directly on the property line as opposed to the elevator, which I think is a smart choice with the concern of the neighbor. Okay, I was just trying to clarify some of that. So I guess my only real comment is, based on the updated railing, my only comment would be disagreeing with Commissioner Powell about the location of the kind of silk cornice area. But otherwise, I think this is much improved over what we saw previously. I'll be quiet now.
Go ahead, Leon.
Mr. Chairman, the staff and the developer have been in discussion about the corner of Bond and the Eastern Avenue and trying to find ways to activate at the ground level something for the pedestrians.
Okay.
And the public right of way, so that it does, as Commissioner Capel has mentioned, activates and engages and brings prominence to that corner.
Okay. Leon, thank you. Stacey, could you take us back to our recommendation page? Before we conclude, are there any more comments or any more discussion needed before we move forward? Okay. Commissioners, with the recommendation is approval of addition with final details to return to staff for 500 South Bond, Fells Point. Do I have a motion for the recommendation?
So, I was gonna say, to make sure Eric is good with writing down the motion, I guess my question for fellow commissioners is if we agree with staff recommendation, are we agreeing based on the updated rendering or the prior one submitted?
I think it's the updated, right? I mean, that's
That-
the latest.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, why don't we just approve the FDRC?
Yes.
You guys are quiet, yes, okay, all right. If everyone's comfortable, then I'll go ahead and make a motion.
Yes.
Okay, so I move to concur with staff's recommendation for the approval of addition with final details to return to staff based on the updated rendering provided at the meeting today.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do I have opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Next on our list, we have 517 South Wolf Street, Fells Point Historic District. The request is concept review, construct two-story addition on top of existing garage on South Chapel Street. The applicant is Julie Tice, and the staff, once again, is Mr. Eddie Leon.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen, we have next for your consideration to construct a new two-story addition on a rear garage at 517 South Wolf Street in the Fells Point Historic District. Architect is Julia Tice, owner is Mary Bickford. The property is located here, more toward the eastern end of the Fells Point Historic District, South Wolf Street being the major corridor street, and the South Chapel Street side is actually the alley street that is behind it. The site is located here, pointed out in red. It's sort of a jogged site, as it does appear that there may have been a three-bay garage on the site at one time, but only this bay remains, and it was all tied into an ownership of 517. The garage building has not been reviewed by the CHAP Commission, nor by the staff since the creation of the Historic District in December of 2007. The applicants proposed to construct a two-story frame building addition on the existing one-story masonry garage building. Staff applied 1.17 alterations and additions of the CHAP guidelines. The site on the far left photograph is looking west toward Chapel Street at the bottom and looking toward the back of 517 South Wolf Street. The middle photograph shows it looking, if you're looking from Wolf Street toward the east, and we see the top of the roof here below the arrow. And then we have the actual two-door standing garage building that remains on the site facing South Chapel. The plans are to retain the garage structure on the ground floor and then build two additional floors above it. The proposal is almost like a dual design. The South Chapel Street elevation will add a facade of 2 stories that directly are influenced by the late Italianate style of row house architecture typically found throughout Fells Point. It does conform to the height, scale, and massing of other structures along South Chapel Street. The reverse of the building, due to the topography of the site, only the 2 stories on the other side would be visible, facing into the courtyard. So we have a gabled roof with a dormer, single entrance and window, and small stairs that allows the owner to enter the building at what would be the 2nd story level of the building. Here is the north elevation side view. We see the addition directly above the existing garage with 4 small double-hung windows, and then halfway, we see a change in the siding and the roof line pitch with the dormer that faces the interior courtyard. Looking at, from the south side, we see again looking through the building, a cut-through. We also see the windows of the other side that faces over the parking area pad that exists. A close-up detail showing a double hung windows on the second and third story, a very simple designed cornice, retaining the two garage doors and replacing them with proper carriage doors will be incorporated back into the design here. Staff believes the addition meets the CHAP guidelines for height, scale, and massing. The combination of styles is unique and will not be confused for an original historic building, but reflect that of its product of its time. The building will be used as an artist studio for the owner. The building incorporates two different period styles found in the district. This blend of different styles can be found in many examples throughout the district that has evolved over 200 years and therefore does not seem out of place. The Community Association there's been no objections, and the DRC did review the project previously when it had a slightly different design for the same concept of building 2 stories above it. Recommendation, staff recommends approval of height, massing, and scale, and recommends that the project return to staff for final review. Thank you.
Eddie, thank you. Do we have any questions for Eddie?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm guessing it's just trying to simplify for the sake of the elevation drawings, but was there discussion, the intention is to keep the brick cornice line that's currently above the garage doors and
The
then build
architect's
on top
here,
of
she
that?
can answer that specifically, but I believe that the intent is to maintain that cornice line edge, yes.
Okay.
Let me go back to this slide. Here.
Yeah, that cornice, the dentals.
Quick question, is
Yes,
it
sir.
a contributing structure?
Tricky question. It was built in the period of significance. However, its original historic context was dramatically changed with the demolition of the 2 other bays. So it is more of a remnant of a contributing historic structure.
Any other questions for Eddie? Okay, Eddie, thank you.
Thank you.
At this point, we allow the architect
Yes.
to come forward.
Hi, my name is Julie Tice, and I am the architect. So I just wanted to very quickly provide a little bit of extra context for how we came to the aesthetics of this. So originally on this site, this was the site of 2 side-by-side Cawkers homes that were demolished sometime in the 1930s, and there's actually a HABS record available, and I have a brief presentation I can circulate to you that gave a little bit of context that's not included here. You can see it was a paired set of Cawkers homes. So you'll see it in there's historic photos and documents in there from that. So that is how the courtyard side elevation and texture evolved, was the owner wanted to pay homage to that. And our original design was to actually have that be the Chapel Street facing elevation, and there was pushback on that and the preference to really articulate more with the brick buildings that are on Chapel Street. So we reversed the building entirely and kind of flipped the Cawkers home motif to the courtyard side, where it would be only enjoyed and visible by the owner, and then address the additions that would be visible from Chapel Street to talk a little bit more with the other houses that are there, and you can see that in the street elevation.
Are we ready for questions, Commissioner?
Oh, I thought you
Or
had
are
Some more you want to share?
Oh, no.
You good? Okay.
I'm happy to take questions, but that's all I.
I'll re-ask
Are there any
my-
questions?
I'll re-ask my question.
Oh, sure.
Which is on the garage side, is the intention to keep that, the brick dental cornice detail?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So the garage itself was built sometime in the 1940s after the demolition, and it was a 3-bay garage. So again, this whole site between the 3-story home to the right that you see and the kind of assemblage of other outlined structures, that was actually, that was where that whole site was filled with the 2 Cockers homes, and then when they were torn down, it was a 3-bay garage. And of that 3-bay garage, only this left or southernmost portion remains. So it's an older building, but it's, still has historic texture to it. So our intention is to keep that as is and just build straight above that, continue that up with a brick facade.
And Julie, I want to allow your papers to come around because there may be some commissioners that may ask something after they see it.
Sure.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
The doors that are on the garage, are they original?
I don't believe so, but they're also in very poor condition.
Yeah, I just wonder if, I think it would be worthwhile looking into what the original doors were, if there's any
Okay.
documentation, and if so, there's an argument to be made for replicating the original door style with the new
Sure.
doors.
I think in principle, we can look into the details of the door patterning itself.
Any other questions from any of the commissioners? Once again, Jill, I'm gonna wait till it comes back down. Okay.
One question. Can you go back to the photographs? Yeah, that's good. So is the kind of dental top of this going away?
Nope, that's staying.
That stays?
Mhm.
Thanks.
That's okay, you can ask the same question 5 different ways to make sure I'm gonna give you the same answer.
Julie had a question. Your elevation here looks different than the elevation up there, the side elevation, the north elevation.
Oh, so the set that I'm passing around was the original proposal that we had come up with that got pushed back. So we ended up flipping it. So
That's more recent.
yeah, so this is the more recent. That was just a context set that I developed very early in this process. And so I brought it along mostly so that you could see the Cockers house, the Wayback Machine of the Cockers houses, so that you could get a feel for how we came up with.
So why didn't this go forward?
CHAP staff didn't think that it was appropriate.
Julie, I usually take 2 hours to read, so
No,
no, I'm just messing with you.
So
I'm
there
here
are
on your
pictures,
time.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, ma'am.
Sure.
Commissioners, before we make a decision, would you like to have a discussion? Any comments? Okay. Oh, go right, sir. Go
I'd
ahead.
like to recommend that my comment about looking into the historic original door design be added to the recommendation, if my fellow commissioners agree.
Duly noted.
I think that's a good idea, Sarah, to at least investigate.
Anyone else? Okay. The recommendation, staff recommends concept approval of height, massing, and scale, and recommends that the project return to staff for final review. And we have the other recommendation to be put into consideration for the door to be also staff to also look at that as well. For 517 South Wolf Street in Fells Point, do I have anyone who'd like to put that motion forward?
I move to approve height, massing, and scale, and with the addition that the original door arrangement be researched and considered for the design of new doors, and that the project return to staff for final review.
Do I have a second?
A second.
All in favor? Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Next on our agenda, 1100 East Baltimore Street, Jonestown Historic District. The request, demolition hearing, determination of architectural significance. The applicant, the Helping Up Mission, Inc., which is the contract purchaser, and our staff will be our own Eric Holcomb. All right? Unless,
Stacy and I are having a conversation of who should give the staff report.
whatever you two
We
decide.
should, Eric.
All right.
It'll be good to see you up there in front of the podium.
Yeah, all right, Eric.
And this is the. Great. Good afternoon, Commission. Nice seeing you from up here. We're here today to do a determination of historical significance of 1100 East Baltimore Street. And again, the petitioner is the Helping Up Mission. That's the contract purchaser. So really, to move through and look at what we're doing in here, does this have a red light thing? Does that?
No, it just has, if you press the button on the top, it's like a mouse. You gotta hold it down.
Oh.
Would you like the light off?
Okay, sure. All right. So taking a quick look here, this is the blue is the local historic district of Jonestown, and then you see 1100 East Baltimore Street pinned right there. And then looking at it again, this is right next to, directly west of it is a two-story garage. Directly in front of it is more of your, directly on the south side is more of your historic Jonestown fabric. And then looking at this, I think, all right, so yeah. All right, so first of all, let's look at this. This was the entire block of the original development proposal that was given into CHAP back in 2012, pretty much. And through several different CHAP hearings, we approved the demolition of everything except for those three elevations, the southwest and north elevation of the historic Hindler building, Creamery building. And this is what we're seeing right here, is these three elevations right here. And this is actually, this still has its interior on there, and that's why you don't see the shoring on the outside. And just looking at it again, but we're seeing that through the approval process and through the development efforts of this block, we approved a lot of non-historic demolition and some historic demolition. And just taking a look at it again. And that's the background that we sort of talked about really quickly. 2012, we determined that some of the buildings did not contribute to the Jonestown Local Historic Districts. The next month, we considered that more of the buildings on there did not contribute to the local historic district. 2013, we gave concept approval to that 254 apartment units and 2 floors of underground parking. It was a block size development. 2015, we approved revised concepts, a new plan proposed the demolition of the Hindler Building's entire east elevation, 1 bay of the north elevation, and the entire interior. So that's how we got to what we have now. Looking at the background again, and that's what we sort of see before demolition. So 2017, we did some more amendments. And in 2018, DHCD approved the demolition permit and then and a shoring plan for the facades. 2021 and November 20th, 2021, building inspector went out to investigate to see if it was an emergency condition, and he determined it was not an emergency at that time. But on February 9th, 2023, Assistant Commissioner evaluated the structural engineer's report and concurred with its findings. So we sort of had a double check on that. Just looking at the background again, here we go. This is what we approved. So this was sort of one of the final renderings of what it was supposed to look like. And then, but today that did not happen. It was a great effort to develop the property. It didn't happen. So now we're left with the proposal to actually demolish the remaining 3 elevations. And as part of a long-term plan to grade the property and make it temporary green space. And then in probably 5 or more years probably develop that site for their purposes. So basically, we would have a green space for about 5 years. Application of design guidelines, this looking at this, the demolition hearing. These are the guidelines that we use to consider what is historic and what is not historic. Is historic architectural significance of the property, all structures, dates the determination of the historic and architectural significance of a structure's additions, significant alterations or ancillary buildings. So when we do a determination of architectural significance, we look at these right here. What we're looking at basically is the 3 elevations of this property. That's the only thing that's left of this. Determination of architectural determination regarding the historic significance of the structure would be prior to considering the details of the demolition. We really don't have any details. We will not be looking at new construction drawings anytime soon. So, but to look at the historic significance, this is what it looked like when it was a power company. Really beautiful building. And this is what it looked like, was at 1915. So that's after the Hindler Ice Cream Company moved in and did lots of new construction, added a 3rd floor. You can see the original building was right where the pediment was, and you can see they added the 2 3rd floors and the east bay. And that's what we looked at in 2017. That's what the building looked like. So, and then looking at what we have today is pretty much just the 3 buildings. Now, want to make sure that we look at, the criteria for evaluation. And this is what we will apply to see if it still retains its historic significance or not. And we'll walk you through that logic to get there. But before we do that, we want to do an analysis. And that analysis is going to look at the structural engineer's report and see how much of the building that we see today, how much of that will remain if this building would be restored and rehabilitated, or the facades being stabilized and incorporated into a new development. So that's what we really want to know, is how much of what the 3 elevations, how much of those elevations can we save? And looking at some of the things, we say the structural engineer's report really pointed out lots of different things, and then we'll have a list of the deterioration on here, and then the conclusions that we looked at. But if you're looking at these things, we'll just go back here. Lots of sandblasted brick that has spent years and years deteriorating and is sort of chalking and falling apart. We have on the inside, there are steel lintels and steel I-beams that were left in the building during the 2018 demolition. Those steels are causing problems to the building right now. And if these facades were to be incorporated into another development, they would have to be removed. And that's something we'll talk about a little bit later. And some other problems, and we see spalling of the brick. Even seeing some of the widths of the brick sort of separating from the areas. There's no cap on the top of the building right here. So this is really sort of lists what we saw there. The interior surface of the wall would have to be, well, this is the analysis piece of it. From the conclusions of the engineer's report, we know that the interior surface of the wall would have to be completely removed and replaced if the walls were to remain. Now, is that 90% or 100% or 85%? We could discuss that, but the vast majority of the interior surface would have to be removed and replaced. The deteriorated exterior side of the facades can't be repaired independently of the interior side. So if you're working on the exterior, replacing portions of the exterior wall and portions of the interior wall, you're going to have a direct impact on either the interior or exterior, and most likely both sides of that wall will have to be removed. That wall, I think when you get to the bottom, when we get asked the engineers, is probably 7 bricks thick, and when you get to the top, it's about 2 bricks thick. So there is that difference right there. But that's something to really think about. There's a direct relationship between the interior and exterior. It is impossible to replace the interior widths of the walls while leaving the exterior intact. Therefore, if the interior wall must be replaced with durable brick, the only way to do that would be to remove the exterior wall. So that's one of the assumptions here that staff made. And also, all steel lintels must be removed and replaced, and the abandoned cut-off steel beams and concrete slabs that are embedded into the wall must be removed. In order to do this safely, significance of the wall above must be removed. So basically, if you're really thinking about it, not only do we have to remove the structurally unsound and the extremely deteriorated brick and replace it with new brick, when we do that, or when we remove portions of the building we have to make it structurally sound, there's portions above it we have to remove, because you can't do it safely. You know, gravity will pretty much say the bricks above will fall if you remove the bricks at the bottom. There's ways to do it, but that's sort of a given. And just looking at some more here. And am I going the right way? I'm going the wrong way. Sorry. It's a lot harder than I remember it to be. So at the end of the day, and we could have a discussion on here, we do believe that the existing structure is deteriorated beyond repair, and therefore it has lost its historical significance. It cannot convey the 4 criteria that we use to determine historical significance. And no longer meets the criteria for eligibility as a contributing structure for a Jonestown district. And I think that's it. But I think one of the things would be really useful, first of all, if there's any questions, and then hopefully the structural engineer can come by and talk to and answer your questions about his report, and he has, I think, several illustrations that could really maybe help us visualize how much of that building, if we could restore, how much of it would be original fabric.
You're good, thank you.
I just want to tag on a quick point about the disposition is that the property is subject to an LDA. So it would be subject to city approval of an LDA as well, which we're working with BDC on. So the project in that is being approved and for which a timeline is being approved under the LDA would be that clean and green project. So this is not, this isn't sort of the end of the game, I guess is my what I'm saying. The building is owned by Hendler Creamery Development LLC.
Okay, thank you. We had, someone had their hands up. Yes, Kevin.
Okay, now I have 2 minutes. Thank you, Commissioner. He was trying. So I have a few questions. One is there a limit on the period of due diligence right now? Time frame, sorry.
It would need to be extended by mutual agreement.
Okay, all right, because I know a lot of times it can be 60 days or 90 days.
Yeah,
or-
and we've been working very closely with the seller team. We have a very cooperative relationship, so.
Okay, so then presumably given having to do some environmental and things, as far as timeline, it would not put the purchase agreement into immediate concern if this was delayed to a second hearing because of the other tasks that also have to take place.
Yes, that is true. I think the question isn't really the purchase agreement. I think what we're sort of wrestling with in the concept of a second hearing is the engineering report conclusion wasn't that it would be expensive to restore, it's that it's impossible to restore. And so I think that's what we're running up against is not that we're not saying that what we want to do is expensive. We're saying that the building is so degraded and the individual brick components are so degraded that the restoration is impossible. And I don't know that that's really the purview of a hardship hearing. I think it's a bit of a square peg and round hole.
And if, Chairman, if I could qualify?
Of course you can.
Thank you. Well, Stacy, would you like to qualify?
I was just going to say the hardship is both an economic and technical infeasibility. So both of those things would fall under hardship, is both economically and technically infeasible.
Okay, thank you. So I'm not done yet. Been raising my hand for 20 minutes. Okay, all right. I think I agree with everything my fellow commissioners have said. It is unfortunate that we are to where we are today. Given the historic significance, like Peter said, when you look at the criteria for evaluation, the structure that's remaining, in my opinion as well, still has that. That is a separate question from structural integrity, which I believe has been clearly illustrated today to be questionable and, an imminent threat to people in the vicinity. That said, it has been shored up and standing in this condition for 7 years, 5 years. Where's my math? 2, 5, yeah. And this is one of the really tough places in historic preservation because we're constantly having this discussion about historic significance of a property and where's that gray line where it crosses into no longer maintaining integrity, right? And so when I think about projects that I've been related to where there's been a loss of historic integrity, they are not typically based on the structural concerns of the building or building remnant that is left remaining. Does that make sense? So that said, I do agree that there might be a route for either a maintained ruin or some piece of the building that remains in order to convey to the public that there's a historic structure here. whether the majority of the structure is remaining or not. That said, in order, I guess this will be a process question, in order to allow time for an investigation like that or an analysis like that to take place, would it be basically possible to ask for that to be done if we were to go to a second hearing, or would there be a place in the process that we could request something like that be examined? Do we have any way to do that?
There are ways to get reports and consultants to come in and chat with us. I think one of the things as we move forward with this, I think that, if we did have a demo 2 hearing, I think you guys are almost ready, because if we are going for technical impossibility to save the building, now my assumption is that once historic fabric is deteriorated beyond repair, that fabric does not convey historic or architectural significance. So that's the way that we looked at it as we moved forward. But I think that, if we say this does have historic and architectural significance, and we go to a demo 2 hearing that speaks to technological feasibility, because the argument here is basically it's impossible to preserve this structure, I think we already have it. So I think we could put it on the April hearing if we had to.
But I do think there's a difference between the possibility. I see you bending your head. I think there's a difference between the possibility of saving something in its entirety and looking at being able to say something or some interpretation for the public. I'm not necessarily saying that means sticking a steel frame behind it and maintaining it like the Patuxent Female Institute, because I don't know that you have enough material left to be able to do something like that. But I do think that there is a responsibility to continue the importance or the significance of what was on the site. And maybe it's just an ignorance on my part, but I don't know how we can encourage or enforce that if we move forward with a demolition approval today. And maybe that's just ignorance on my part, unless someone else has different information.
I don't think it's ignorance. I'll just step in really quickly, sorry to jump order, but I think there was a suggestion that was put out there in terms of some kind of marker or pave or something. I think that there's
A plaque.
a place for that.
A plaque with a photo of the building. Once you start taking this building apart, the whole thing's going to fall down.
Right,
Hold
so
on.
my concern is an investigation or consideration of something that could be done to educate the public about the historic significance of what we have lost or what potentially could be lost in the future of this structure.
Gotcha. Okay, Powell, and then I got to go to Gary.
I'd probably say that it's probably no different than adding an addenda to the motion, right? If you wanted to say like, if we were to all say that, we agree with the CHAP's distinction of why it's lost its significance.
Right.
And then it passed today, that you can add that the commission would like to really press for a commemorative effort on artifacts and residual salvage or so I think that could be an easy. I think it could be an easy add. I did want, because she's been the one opposition has been really putting their hand up, but I'd really love to hear if you allow her to get, I would want to hear what she has.
Sure, let me do this. Let me get to Garrett first,
But
and
yes,
then I'll allow
please.
you to come up. I got to promise Garrett to speak. Go right ahead, Garrett.
I think historic site. I think a definitive case has been made that past events have permitted this site to deteriorate beyond repair. And a definitive case has been made that demolition is the next step in going forward. So for me, it's a clear and unambivalent satisfaction of what we needed to be told that now is the time for demolition. We are not denying the historic richness of the Hendler site. We are sadly recognizing that it can no longer be salvaged. Now is the time to make a decision in favor of demolition. Thanks.
Thank you, Gary. Donna, by all means, come up.
Some portions of the brick have been sandblasted, but he didn't say what percentage of the building, what percentage of bricks, things like that. So he's talking in generalities. I don't know if any of you have read what he has put out. I'd be curious to know exactly what percentage of the building, all these things he's talking about, what percentage it pertains to. If you read any historic preservation magazines, if you open up any magazine, any month of the year, you'll see buildings or fronts that were left for dead that had been preserved. If you want to find, if there's a will, there's a way. And that pertains to the Hendler building, definitely. It seems like every other facade or every other building in Washington, D.C. is a new building behind an old facade. There are places in Baltimore City where rows of houses, the fronts have been saved. It's just like, and I realize it may be more complicated with a large building like that, but again, if there's a will to do this, there is a way. The other thing, and I'm sorry, but I have to say this, the developer should be held accountable. It is because of the developer that we have this mess. CHAP, of course, had a part in that, but it comes down to the developer who said he was going to do this, that, and the other, and then he didn't do it. His responsibility to this city was to sell the property if he couldn't do what he said he was going to do. Also, really important, this young lady over here said that it's an 18-month period to take down the building. If it's such a problem that it's going to fall down in the street today, why does it take 18 months to tear it down? So,
Donna, hold on, Donna. I'm giving you an opportunity to give public testimony, but I don't want you to put slow down. I don't want to put yourself in a position or anyone else where you're combative. So just please give your statements.
I've been through multiple
I understand your frustration, but I have to remind you your position here on the
multiple preservation battles just like this, where it had to come down, So it came down, and then what was left? Nothing, or it's like the Rochambeau, right? Rochambeau came down, we've got a garden. A building would have been, the historic.
You've got 30
building would have been
seconds
better.
left.
Thank you. So they also talk about, well, if they walk away from the project, they don't want to buy the building. There are other people, there are other developers with vision who want to save the beauty of this building and will have a use for it. And so they're not the only hope, right? You don't owe them anything. What this commission owes to the city of Baltimore and to the people that live in this city who, we have very little of this very special, unique architecture left.
Donna, your time is up.
You owe it to the citizens of this city to save that front. Thank you.
No, we're done. Any other commissioners would like to make a comment before we make our recommendation? Yes, Myra.
I just wanted to build up a little bit more on what Commissioner Good was saying before about ways of like recognizing the history. So,
Sure.
Structurally, because I'm looking again at pictures of Independence National Park in Philadelphia, which I don't know for sure, but I think a lot of that construction is new. It's just sort of like the first few feet of some brick and then some freestanding windowsills, but it speaks to the history of the place. And I believe earlier it was said that if the existing facade were demolished, the green area would have an 8-foot tall fence around the perimeter. So for instance, if you're going to put up something on the perimeter anyway, whether or not you reclaim some of the brick or you put in some new brick that speaks to the history of the architectural style, but something where it just doesn't have to be all or nothing. I'm just thinking like if in the next hearing, have them explore that. So it's not like, oh, it's not feasible to save the entire facade. Okay, well, what is feasible? And come up with something a little bit better than just saying, oh, well, we just can't do it.
That's a great point.
May we respond on just that point?
Hold on, I got to remember, I don't want anyone to talk out of turn during a session that the commissioners are still speaking. Commissioners, are there any other comments?
I would also like to hear a response.
Okay, any other commissioners before we hear a response? By all means.
Thank you. I just want to commit that today Helping Up Mission is more than willing to work with staff on a commemoration or something that will make sense, that will be site appropriate. So given that we are willing to commit to that today, we think there's evidence, as Professor Power said, there's abundant evidence in the record to support this finding. Thank you.
Thank you. If there is not any more comment, Catherine.
I just have a last procedural question. So, given the purpose of this hearing, are we correct in saying that if we were to make a motion for approval of the demolition, that we could put a comment on it to officially make a part of the record to consider interpretive something?
Yes.
And, sorry, one more question to,
Yes, sir.
to CHAP staff.
Yes, sir.
This is not a first time of voting similar to this occasion, right? There is a track record, whether people like it or not. There was a track record of having to go through a demo one where it was an unfortunate case and it had to go down. And there are precedents. This isn't precedent one. This is precedent 27.
That is correct. There have been many times when we determined that there is historical and architectural significance, and they would go to a hearing two. And the hearing two has always been, in my memory, maybe Eddie could help correct me on that, has always been economic feasibility. I don't think we've ever had a technical feasibility. Is it feasible to save this structure? Stacy, do you remember anything?
I recall we've had other cases where we've had similar buildings that although the building appears historic, we've looked at the technical, if it's has to be completely reconstructed to save the building, that's when staff has traditionally said the building no longer contributes to the district, that the staff recommendation is consistent with previous staff recommendations for buildings in a condition that have to be completely reconstructed to be saved. That's traditionally when staff has made this type of a recommendation, even when the building looks historic in some capacity.
Which links up to economic hardship. Like at
Right,
that
and those
point,
ones
you're
either come back for
reconstructing
economic
something that's
hardship
economically
or don't come back for
not
economic
feasible.
hardship.
Okay, I just want to clarify.
Oh, Tamara, she had a question. I mean,
Well,
comment.
quick question, I guess a couple of questions and thoughts. In terms of if we modified the motion, if people agree, we would go with staff and say you must commemorate the site. Is there a way to frame that such that it's short-term commemoration, because it's already been stated that the site would be green for at least 5 years, and that it would be permanent, so that when you go into the design phase, that you're not shifting, moving, and doing all of these different things. So giving that kind of forethought. And the other comment, and I know we're closing out, so I don't have, the ability to ask questions, but Ms. Domsel also stated that they have to get an LDA through BDC. So there's the terms of agreement that have to happen through another agency. Is there a way to include some kind of language in your contract as you're moving through that LDA phase that captures what the commission says either here today, or if there is going to be, I know we haven't voted yet, if there is to be a hardship hearing? I want to make sure that whatever we decide in order to commemorate, because I think it's going the way of at some point it's going to be demolished, that it's included in the contract that you all have to have if you move forward.
Yes, you may.
Yes, one of the first things we're going to do after we leave is call Dan Taylor and tell him what occurred. So certainly there was the link between whatever you say and then whatever goes into the LDA, because they will want to know what happened and they will want to know what the commission's recommendations were. So if that's what you're looking for is just the link, we can absolutely commit to that.
Tamara, to your point though, you're saying though, even after the 5 years, even after the transfer, that the commemoration still exists, just to be clear.
Correct.
Thank you. Okay. If there is no more discussion, for 1100 East Baltimore Street, the recommendation is the existing structure is deteriorated beyond repair. Therefore, the structure has lost its historic significance and no longer meets criteria for eligibility as a contributing structure to the Jonestown Historic District. But we also have, Eric, the piece about the commemoration. How do we want to put that inside the recommendation?
So again, I'd like to move the staff recommendation, but with the caveat that there be a historic marker.
Yes, sir. Okay, do I have anyone who would like to put that motion forward?
That's
That's what
yeah.
we just did.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you, sir. Thank you. Do I have a second? There we go. All in favor?
Aye.
Do I have any opposed?
Nay.
We have to-
Can we go around?
Yes.
Yeah, we're gonna have to go.
Of course we can go
All right,
around.
I'm gonna call it out here because I haven't y'all's names listed. Nicole Battle,
Approve the demolition.
Councilman Bullock,
Yes.
Chairman Good,
Yes.
Chairman Langmead.
No, but because I think it should go appropriately to a second demolition hearing or be handled by the city's emergency unsafe building inspection method.
Commissioner Leon,
Yes, regretfully, yes.
Commissioner Mandaleev,
Sorry, can I ask a question? No, nope, okay.
Can voting now.
I know it's hard.
Now.
It is.
And, okay, I heard like no would go to a second hearing.
That was just for the benefit of everyone in the room understanding.
What
You don't
did
have to
what-
give a comment. You can just say yes or no.
She said no, okay.
Commissioner Morrill,
Definitely no.
Commissioner Powell,
Yes.
Commissioner Power,
Yes.
Commissioner Rodwell. And Commissioner Woods.
Yes.
All right.
I am a regretful yes, but I.
3 noes and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 yeses.
8 yeses, 3 noes, the motion passes.
Can I make a parting comment after we leave that?
You can make a parting comment.
I think our discussion would have been much easier if the staff recommendation had not said that the structure had lost its historic significance. I think all of us thought it still had its historic significance, that the building had lost its integrity. So on occasion, we're faced with this horrible task of voting in favor of deterioration of something that was and is historically significant because of its physical condition.
But isn't that the criterion of the first demolition hearing, to assess whether the structure still retains historic and architectural
Maybe it's
significance?
something for our procedures committee that's forming to consider.
Well,
Hadn't staff made that determination for us? I mean, we could disagree.
They make a
It's a
recommendation.
recommendation, but that's my understanding of the criteria of that first.
This is a metaphysical problem. This is a deep.
It's procedural.
This is a deep philosophical problem that goes way back to Descartes and probably goes back to Plato and Aristotle.
Oh, boy. Now we're in the cave with the shadow.
So, Thank you, Powell, for your comment. I appreciate that.
But I think, just.
What's the, go right ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. I absolutely agree with Chairman Good that, yeah, let's make sure that we address this during our procedures revisions.
That's right. Is there any old business? Is there any new business? The motion is on the floor for the meeting to adjourn. Do I have anyone who'd like to put that motion forward? There is new business? What's new business?
I don't know if this is the right time to talk about it, but there's a site within Druid Hill Park that I want us to consider at our next meeting.
We will definitely do that. Okay.
I think there's general question on about that, because we were talking about a different site too. Like if there's something we want to bring forward, what do we do with that? So it would be helpful to know what that route is.
Okay. Any other new business before we adjourn? And you threw your hand up for the motion. Do I have a second? Meeting adjourned.